Shalom Aleichem. We're going to talk about the famous Shaul about crackpot. Crackpot. We're talking about the inter-crackpot. If you're allowed to use it on Shabbos, everyone remembers not so long ago, a little over maybe 25 years ago, right before Shamzamos Nifta, he gave out his famous psak that you're not allowed to use the crackpot. It's a Shaul of Hatmona, and many people that were using it, especially in America. So try to explain a little bit what the Shaul is, what the being is, what was Rosh Hashanah's Chiddush, what wasn't Rosh Hashanah's Chiddush. Try to explain it. Them says it's a sugya rucha that's really hard to give over in such a short time. We'll try to give over the basic study. We notice in Machik the Shainim, if Atmona b'miksa shmei Atmona, the Shainim at the beginning of the third parak, Kira, bring down the sheet of the Rash. The Rash says that Atmona miksa shma Atmona, which means that, for example, you put a pat onto Gecholim, sitting on Gecholim. The halach is that that's considered Atmona, even though it's only mutman mitzad echad on one side, that's considered Atmona. Where's Negeh the Sugya Shia? We have halacha at the beginning of Kira. We have the Sugya in Rash and Gimel that a person is allowed to be Masha Gedera as long as it's Kamaichem in the soil like Chananya or like Rabbanon, it's Masamak B'Yafala, even though it's sitting L'Chayran Gechol. So where is Negeh this whole halacha typically mitzad Atmona? So the Rash says that we're talking about that you put it on a tripod. Put it on a tripod, it's sitting above the Gecholim. So maybe there's no Shail of Atmona. Kapon, there's a sheet of the Rash, and Memes, you look in the Rishayim, come out all the Rishayim agree with the sheet of the Rabbinic Chananel. We know what the klal is. The sheet of Rabbinic Chananel is Divrei Kabbalah. Chazon says in a plate, I think in Hilchos Edron says it means Divrei Kabbalah because his Messiah was unbroken Messiah. Upon him, whatever it is, but there's a Rash that's come out in all Rishayim, the Rash, the Rash. The Moshe brings the sheet of the Azrua that not like that he holds Atmona mixas loishma. It's like I said, Atmona. The going tells food is right from Taisus and after Mem Zayin. Upon him, we have a shaila here for Atmona mixas shmo Atmona or not. There is a question to Shainim. The Rabbinic Chananel was only talking about Gecholim, or talking about anything that's Ma'asav Hevel, Lavdafka Gecholim. There is a question to Rishayim. Upon him, the Mechaber at the beginning of Rash and Gimel, Soif Sif Aleph, clearly paskins like the Shita of Rabbinic Chananel. The Mechaber says, B'chol anything we're discussing about Shia, Binyan Sheshah Kederi Yeshev is like he's about the Kederi is sitting on top of like a tripod, or Gavavonim, in a gas Gecholim. Atmana Gabel Cholim, the Brakalasa, that's the sheet of the Rabbinic Chananel, but Atmana Gabel Cholim is also. Agav Yeshaimrim, the Ramah says, I feel like there medis Agav Eish Mamish, Osman Shimikul, Lamaila Mikra, Atmona Veshor Vechene Minix. The Ramah says that no, Atmona Miktas, Loish Mo Atmona, Mela, there's no problem. So the it would seem that this child of a crackpot is telling the Machaikis Mechaber Ramah, according to the Mechaber, that go with the sheet of the Mechab will come out that it would be also to use this crackpot. According to us, Bnei Ashkenaz, Hayotzim B'Yad Ramah, will come out, you'll be allowed to use this crackpot. Now, it happens to be that there is a Chazonish that's Meirich Tuva, that the sheet of the Ramah is a Das Yichidah, it's only a sheet of the Azrua, and he holds that Abada Dika Aloch is not like the Ramah, therefore a person should be machmer even Atmona miktas. Okay, so according to the Chazonish, about a person would have to machmer not to use this crackpot because Atmona miktas is Hatmona. But the Mishnah Bura clearly says many places, Rash Zayin, Rash Ches, that we pass Atmona miktas loishma Atmona like the Ramah. So Mela, if you go with the Das of Mishnah Bura, Bada will come out. It will be l'chayra mutter to use these crackpots. Just on a side note, l'chayra you could ask that according to Svardim, it should be a problem even putting even the other crackpots, the crackpot that have a crackpot plate, and there's no insert, the chayr also, because it's mutman on one side. And you could ask more. According to them, you wouldn't be able to put something on a blach either, because the chayr is mutman on the blach. It would only be mutter if it be put on, let's say, a burner or a tripod. But that's something that can't be said, because many rayas of Shulchan Aruch and Chacham himself that would hold that such a thing as mutter. And the answer to the question is a Beis Meir. The Beis Meir says that even according to the Shita of the Machaber, according to the Shita of the Rash, that Hatmana Mixas, Shema Hatmana, it has to be Hatmana Mixas. That means the one side that is Hatmana on, it's mutman. That means it sinks in. If you have a pat that's on coals, it sinks in. But if you have a pat that's on a flat surface, that's not even called Hatmana Mixas. That's not called Hatmana at all. But getting back to our question, we have a Shaul if you're allowed to use. If there's any problem with using the CROCKPOTS, so we're saying the Chayra should be telling the Machoik is a Shainim, what's the din if Hatmana b'miksa Shema Hatmana? According to the sheet of the Rash, that's the sheet of the Mechaber, that Hatmana b'miksa Shema Hatmana, and the whole sugya of Shia is only talking about when it's sitting, the pot sitting on a tripod, but not directly on a gecholim, come out for this crackpot would be a problem to use. We said the other crackpots that's flat, that wouldn't be a problem because that's not called mutman. Mashenkein. But Bnei Ashkenaz that Hilchos biyadrimo will come out, it should be 100% mutter. Unless you a chaznishnik in Bnei Brak, they go with the chaznish, then they would have to machmer because the chaznish lemaisa was machmer for the sheet of the machaber. Question is, where is the mokim to be machmer? So let's try to go through a little bit of the study. The first shot is like this. This halacha, the Ramah holds Hatmana mixas leishim atma. Has to be mutman. Now, how much does it have to be mutman? Does it have to be a mutman on 6 sides? That means the bottom, all 4 sides, and the top. Or as long as it's mutman on 5 sides, even if it's megula l'mayla, that's already called Hatmana b'kula. That's enough. The lashon of the Ramah, we mentioned before, the lashon Ramah when he brings down the sheet of the Ramah says, let's get out the lashon Ramah. He says here. So what does the Ramah mean? It says megula l'mayla. What does it mean megula l'mayla? Does megula l'mayla mean on the top? That means a place with a cover, top of the kisui, there's nothing there. Or no, even if it's totally uncovered on the top, that's called hatmana. It means megula l'mayla means, let's say on the top of the pot, the top part is uncovered. But just the fact that the 6th ruach is uncovered, maybe that's not enough. That would be considered Hatmana later sheet of the Ramah. Obviously, this is a big nafkamina l'gabe our crackpot, because our crackpot is mutman on the bottom and all 4 sides, which is on top. It's a megula. That's the question. So there is Shaila. There's a Pri Megadim that speaks about the Shaila many places. I think I found there are 4 places that the Pri Megadim speaks about the Shaila. Hadal and Pshat in the Ramah. And the Pri Megadim still su Amoyer de Rashba. There's a Rashba of Mem Ches that brings this shmuz about Hatmana makes us shma Hatmana now. And Rash wants to bring a raya that it's a problem. Why? Because he says that the Mishnah over here says in the Mem Tes, the Toimnim, Beshalchin, and Metaltanisa, Begizitzem, Metaltanisa. It says you're allowed to make Hatmana. Why? Because Hatmana, Bedova Shein Oisiv Hevel. And the Mishnah continues, Kates Rois, and Isa Kisa, Vehinafelas. The Mishnah is talking about the mutman with Dovash and Ma'aseh Hevel, the mutman and Erev Shabbos, and the Mishnah says how you're going to get off the kisui because the problem is that maybe there's something muksa there, akaponim, and it's not a shaila bosses that the Rishonim speak about because the Isser is being mishamish the het. But Eichshiyah, it's before in the Mishnah that's only a het about Hatmana, the Dovash and Ma'aseh Hevel, not by Ma'aseh Hevel. Beg the Rashba, but we're talking about you taking off the kisui. 1 second. So if you take off the kisui. So obviously it wasn't mutman on the top. So it wasn't mutman on the top. Why is the Mishnah saying dafka if you're matman dava shein ma'aseh hevel, the chayra, even if you're matman dava ma'aseh hevel, it should be a problem. Azoy frek the Rash ko akasha. Because the Mishnah says very clear over there that noitla is a kisui, benefelas. That means you're able to grab onto the kisui. That means the kisui is obviously revealed. So it's not mutman on top of the kisui. So maybe the Rash says, so why does the Mishnah say dafka if it's mutam b'einamais of hevel? If you hold not like the Rach, you hold like the sheet of the Ruach, you hold like the sheet of the Ramah, that Hatmana b'miktas loishma Hatmana. So here, since the top of the pot is uncovered, it would come out that should be considered Hatmana b'miktas. And Hatmana b'miktas should be mutter loit those sheetas. So maybe even Hatmana dava ma'aslav should be mutter. That's why I think the Rash or kasha. Obviously, Agav, you see from this Rash where he holds that the ones that Asa says the Rach is even talking about Nakachol. because over there we're talking about his diik is that it says any ma'asav hevel, smashma, any type of ma'asav hevel would be a problem. Like upon him, that's the Rash says. So Rash says something very interesting. He says, "V'im taimar dafka b'shekula tmuna chutz mipiyah im keino sasta v'rechel ashur." The Rash says that maybe you're going to tell me that no, over there it's different. Over there it's totally mutman. I mean, it's mutman of 5 stodim besides the tap, and since it's mutman of 5 stodim besides the tap, that's kula tmuna b'kula. And maybe that has nothing to do with the machlokes between the Rach and the Chochmah. So Rash, we can't say that. Because in Keina Sasta Rechel Shiurim, it comes out, you're making a chiluk. In other words, either you don't want to mix us Shema Tmana, like the Rach, or you don't Lo Shema Tmana. But to tell me that Tmana mix us Lo Shema Tmana, but if it's Megul Lamailo, that's called Atmon, that's called Atmon already, that is not willing to accept. Either you have to be totally Mutman or not Mutman. That's what the Rash says. Now, this is the Rashba trying to prove the Shita of the Rach. But we have Rishonim, those who are that hold Hatmon and Mikzas, Lo Yishma Hatmon. So how are they going to answer Rashba's Kasha? So you could say one or two things. You could say that the Rashba Vada was Nochis, that those Rishonim are going to answer that if it's Mutman on the top, if Pia Magul Lamailo is going to be considered Mutman in Gansen, and maybe there's whole kasha on them is not shver. He just holds that it's a teiche, and the Rach held that it's a raya from there. But about his mask, the other Rishonim would hold that that's considered Hatmana B'kulon. That's one way to learn. Or the Rash holds then no, there can't be. There's no mokum l'chalik. Either it's mutter. And even if it's mutman and ganzen, and they're going to have some way to be matcha Mishnah. That means they'll say the Mishnah maybe in the Chamil Lav Dafka another way, or all the taka are going to have to be pushed to the wall and say that if it's totally mutman besides the top, the halacha would be that would be considered hatman of a kula. The kids again, the Rash brings a raya from the Mishnah. The Mishnah's case was that you had gizi tzemer was surrounding a pot, and it says that you're allowed to take off the cover of the pot, and then take the pot, wiggle the pot out. Let's say the Mishnah, even though the stuff on the side was muksa, but it's still tabanatzat. Like the Rash, but the Mishnah talks about a case of Atmana B'Dava Sheina Ma'asav Hevel. Mashma, that to put it with Dava Ma'asav Hevel, that would be awesome. Like the Rash, for 1 second, if you're taking off the pot cover, obviously you could get the pot cover. That means the pot cover is not covered. If it's not covered, it's a chayra, loiter Rishonim. That whole Hatmana b'mitzvah loishma Hatmana, it's not Hatmana. So it should be mutter even Hatmana b'dava ma'asav hevel. So it's a raya Hatmana is also even by the mixas, and it's only mutter by any ma'asav hevel because you did Erev shots. That's what the Rashba is trying to prove. The Rashba says that you're going to tell me over here it's revealed on top of the kisur. So the Rashba, 1 second, you can't say that. You tell me Hatmana b'mitzvah loishma Hatmana. So punkt, if it's open on top, that's called one of a kula. That's shvei. But there is a shayim that hold that way. How are they going to femfer? So either you could say the Rash was saying that in the Charami, they'll have to say the sasta bechler shir that if it's open on top, that's not considered open. That's called the kula. Or the Rash holds not possible to say that way. And a koch of those are shayim they're going to have to say a different teretz on this kash. That's the two ways how to learn from the Rash. So the Prima Godim, very interesting. The Prima Godim, there's 2 places. The Reish and Gimel is mistapik, how to learn Pshat in the Rashba. And Reish Tes, over there he says that the Rashba means to say that in Chanami, like those Rishonim, you're going to have to say that if it's Makul Lamayla, that's considered Mutman Gansen. It seems to be that's the Soif Das of Prima Godim. That means the Rashba says he holds a very shver zach to say. But the emes is that those Rishonim that have to hold that if it's Mutman on 4 sides, even though it's Mutman, even if it's open on top, that's considered Hatmon of Bekula. As I state in the Prima Godim. So according to Prima Godim, the Maskana of Prima Godim it would seem that even like the Shita of the Ramah, the Shita of the Cholkim, we have a Rash, but it says that it would be a problem. That's the Prima Godim want to say, that's the Pshat in the Rash. Maisa, there is a Ran, Chalush Ran, that brings the Rashba. And he says, no, the other Rishonim will say they're Enochanam. It's talking about, it's a Gansa Megullah, but it was sticking out, there was a little hole that the base yard of the pot was sticking out, That means the kisik dera had a long kisik dera, and you were able to grab it. But it really was mutman and ganzen. As I state in Chedush Ran. So it's clear in the Chedush Ran that he understood. And look, he brings the Rash, but he understood the Rash. But what the Rash said, and came the Sasav Echel Shir, the Rash says that a karchach has to be the loiter Rishoyim that hold that Tmana b'mixas, loishma Tmana, it has to be mutman on all the sides. But he says, I had to learn Pshat the Mishnah. So the Ran says, I tell you Pshat. The case is taka mutman on all sides. But, and that's why if it be B'dava Ma'asev, it will be a problem. But there was a way that had a long handle, maybe you're able to get it out. So we have here, Pri Megadim has a suffix I learned from the Rash, because that's not the Maskana seems to be that the Rash behold that if it's Megul Lamaila, it would be a problem like those are shining. But we have a Chedush Iran, a Rishon that the Pri Megadim didn't have, but a Rishon is clear how he learned from the Rash. So Nira, that the Pri Megadim would have seen the Chedush Iran, about it, he would have been Machriya like that tzad. So we have a first Rash according to the Ran, and we have a first Ran that says that loite shitas that tomorrow and mixes loishmat tomorrow, it has to be mutman and ganzen, even on the top. But if it's megul l'maylo, that is not considered tomorrow. And according to that, when the Ramah says megul l'maylo, doesn't mean megul l'maylo means on the top of the pot it's megullah, or we don't care if it's megullah on top. If on top of the kisa there's nothing there, that's still not part of the kula. No, megul l'maylo means the top. Because if it's not totally closed on top, that's called a tmona mixer, so it will not be a problem. Now, the Pri Megadim brings another raya that a tmona b'mixas only means that it has to be mutman on all sides, but if it's open on top, that's not called a tmona. He brings a ran, not a ran, it means a taz in Simon Reish Nun Ches, because the taz already talks about a case that you want to dip a kli, let's say baby bottle, and you want to warm it up in some hot water, and you're dipping it inside. And the mashma is the taz over there was mashma that you're sticking it in, but the top is revealed. That's what people got them understood pshat in the taz. So why do you have to say that? Even as long as the top of the kisui, as long as it doesn't go all the way in, mashma that he has that part of the side sticking out. As long as the top is not covered with the water, that's already enough. So he says from the taz will be mashma that if it's megullah ma'ila means they have that part of the sides revealed. That's what people says. And the HaRav in Kudra's Achron to simulation and Zayin also understood Pshat in the Taz that way, and he's matmir and it's not true that Avada Atmona Miktas means that anything that's not fully enclosed on all six sides. Like upon the Pri Megadim and the HaRav have a Taz. Amaisa because there's other Tazim in Shin Yud Ches, Sifkon Yud Tes, and other places that's very clear that he holds that it has to mutman on all sides to be considered Atmona. And it's very interesting. Mr. Bura does a lot. Mr. Bura in Reish Nun Ches, when he quotes the Taz, he changes the Taz a little bit on the Lashon Taz to be mashma that has to be mutman and ganzen. Because Mr. Bura holds, like we'll see soon, that in order to be considered atmona, it has to be mutman on all six sides. Even though it was made mashma is a Taz not like that, so he fixed the Lashon Taz, so you shouldn't make such a mistake in understanding the Taz. Upon him, what comes out is the Pri Megadim wants to bring a raya from a Rash, but we said the Chedush Iran is a vur like one side of the Pri Megadim that Megul L'mayla means Megul L'mayla mamish, and he brings a raya from a Tazim. We're saying that there's other Tazim that says the first not like that, and the Mishnah Bura taka switch the Taz that he brings to make it very clear that that's what the Taz means. Here's a Master Shekel also in Reish Nun Tes. It says very clearly that Megul L'mayla means it has to be totally open on the top. Upon him, so if the boy, the Asam, he praised this Pri Megadim, was saying that besides Pri Megadim has come from Rash, they didn't say it himself, it's come from the Ashrois and Rashba. We're saying we have a Fush Chedush Iran, how he has took in the Rashba, and he wanted to bring from a Taz, and the Taz himself, we're saying besides the Taz itself, a Soiser, even that Taz itself, the Mishnah Bura changes the Lashon Taz a little bit, so you shouldn't make this mistake in understanding Pshat in the Taz, like the Pri Megadim, so we've seen from the Mishnah Bura, that he held that Megul L'mayla means anytime it's Megul, even if the kisui is not covered, that's already considered enough. And Bemis is a Mishnah Bura. Other places also that say it says very clearly in the beginning of Reish Nun Gimel when it's brought down to the dinner of the Ramah, he says, what does it mean Megul L'mayla? He says, Hainish Ein Mechasa Allah Begodim L'mayla. So it sounds like Pashas the kisui. And there's a Mishnah Bura in Sefkatan and Tes. In other places, very clear that he understood the Ramah to means Megul L'mayla means on top. That means the kisui is not covered. Now, there is another whole tzad that people want to say, another makar to say, that maybe a crackpot should be a problem. What's the makar? To the Sefer Yosher Rabbeinu Tam. Sefer Yosher Rabbeinu Tam says that anything that's mutman, ruboy, kuloi, that's considered atman. That means it's clear Rabbeinu Tam does not hold like the Rash. The Rash holds even atman, a mix of shmot. But Rabbeinu Tam says, ruboy kuloi, as long as it's mutman ruboy, that's already enough. Okay, we have Rabbeinu Tam and Sefer Yosher. Okay, but even we have Rabbeinu Tam and Sefer Yosher, it's even a bigger chiddush in the Pri Megadim, but who says we pass like this Rabbeinu Tam? So there are many svarim that want to be dying from a chayodom. That this mashav and a chayodom, and we'll see soon in Mishnah Burbin is a chayodom, that they pass in like the shita of this Rabbeinu Tam. What's the chayodom? We're going to read the Lashon in Mishnah Bura, post this chayodom, and we'll see if there is such a chayodom. Mishnah Bura brings down in Reish Nun Zayin, Sifkot and Mem Gimel. Mishnah Bura says like this: In Koifa Kli Rechava, if someone is Koifa Kli Rechava, Oisha Noisin Ola Daf Rochiv, Umechasa Begodom Mailamot Afshem Midoi Ad Chetzi Bechol. Even if you maimed it Ad Chetzi Bechol, it's mutter. So it's Mashal Mishnah Bura and the Chayodam that if it would be mutman rubai, it would be a problem. So there are others that say, oh, so Mishnah Bura passes like the Chayodam. It's passing the Rabbeinu Tam. There is mutman rubai. It is considered hatmona. That's what, and there's one sefer, Choshev sefer on Hilchos Shabbos that was medayik from hidden. Mishnah Bura passes that hatmona berubai is a problem, and based on that, he passes that a crackpot is a problem. And based on what this Choshev sefer wrote, many others farm quote also that the sheet of the Mishnah Bura is like the Chayodam, like Rabbeinu Tam and Sefer Yosher, that hatmona berubai is a problem. But I think it's, if I may say, I think it's a tois. First of all, we said the Mishnah Bura himself says very clearly in many places that hatmona, the miktas means that's not covered on all six sides. That's first of all. Second of all, the not only Mishnah Bura says, Chayodam and Klal Beis Sifhei says very clearly that hatmona means by mikra hatmona ella kshenegeya hadova shematma b'guf hakdera melamaylo lamata b'kol hastadim. He says very clear, Klal Beis Sifhei, that in order to be considered hatmona has to be mutman on all six sides. So the Chayodam besides himself. Here he says chetzio, and there he says all six sides. The Chayotza pelak. And the biggest pel is, it's very interesting, the Chayodam, the Mishnah Bura doesn't quote the whole Lashon Chayodam, but the Chayodam's Lashon over there is, he says that it's mutman chetzio oish lishusai, a half or a third. I don't understand. Is it totally on a half or totally on a third? Which one is it? So if you look in the Chayodam inside, you see very clearly that's not what the Chayodam is coming to do. You always have to look at something inside, because if you don't look at something inside, you don't understand what's going on. The Chayodam is an ashmotus. The Chayodam is trying to figure out how someone could have a hot coffee Shabbos morning. You want to have a hot coffee Shabbos morning, you're waking up at Tux Shabbos morning, or you're not waking up, but you're very fermented, you want to get coffee. Fine. How are you going to have hot coffee? It's not like today. It wasn't so easy just to leave a fire on, and if you can have money, you can't make, and the person, so what are you going to do? So the Chayodam wanted to make a patent and he wanted to be matman and chol, which maybe is considered davar meisiv hevel, but you can't be matman in something that's meisiv hevel, even on Erev Shabbos. So what the Chayodam says like this, I'm going to read the Lashon Chayodam because I think it's very important. It says like this: V'chein lahatman kli. The cliche is bechamin, shekorin. Oh, sorry, here. Binyan shehitman hakav b'chol roi lasses came. Someone wants to matman the kav in chol roi lasses came. Sheyatman hakliyam hakav b'chol. Ubevash leyatman kulay. You can't matman kulay. Rak chetzio yeshli shusay. Either you matman a halfway or a third. V'achakach if was yichvelo k'dera. Binyan shleyiga hakli b'k'dera. You cover. I mean, let's say you matman it halfway or a third. Then you cover on top of it with a pot, a day that should be ave between the day and the kli. Then on top of that, you cover it with a beget. What the Chayodam is trying to do is giving you a very practical eitzah. How can you make your coffee up? If someone's going to take the coffee, stick it all the way in the chol on the ground, and then cover it, that's a real hatmon. That is no heter. So the Chayodam, so I'll tell you more the gates. Take the pot of coffee, put it halfway in the ground or a third in the ground. Now you take another pot, put it over it, and that's not atmana because of space. And then cover that with begotten. That's what the Chayadim is saying. He can't say you put the whole thing on the ground because then Avad will be atmana. What he's saying, Chetz Shlishusa, it doesn't mean to say that if we mutman, let's say you're going to put the whole thing under the ground and leave it open. Avad the Chayadim holds 100% mutter. But then everything's the air, everything's going to come out. Elamai, you're going to cover with something on top there. Also, it's going to be mutman. So he's trying to make an eitzah that if it's covered halfway, a third way, you're going to be able to have something that's going around it, but there's still a little bit of space. But the heat is not going to be able to get out because not too much space. That's what's coming through. But if let's say someone's going to be put it all the way in the ground and then put a pot on top of it, there's going to be a tremendous amount of space and a lot of the air is going to get out. So maybe that's what Chayadim is saying. And that's what Mishnah Berurah is bringing down. But about it, there's no makor whatsoever on the Chayadim to say that he passes like the Shit Rabbeinu Tam that Ruboy is considered atmon. So maybe we'll get back to square one that we have a Ramah that says that if it's mutman, gul l'mayla, that's not considered atmana. And we said that even though the Prima God is mistapik pshat in the Rash, but we said we have a chidusha around that's very clear how we learn pshat in the Rash, and Prima God Bada would not have been machmir if we would have seen that. And we said it's unfortunate machzor shekel, and Zataz and Mishnah Berurah understood that way also. And Bemis the Mishnah Berurah is before, like we said, many places that has to mutman on all 6 sides. And as I state, in Orcha Shulchan, Furish, and it's true for a Moshe that says Lahedya, also that way that has to be mutman on all 4 sides. And that seems to be, that was the minig always in Klal Yisrael until Rav Shlomo Zalman came. And that's why in America everyone used the crackpot. It was based on you do it there. Moshe held that it wasn't a problem because that's considered hatmana of mixus. Why? Since it's open on the top, that is hatmana of mixus. And like we said, even though there's a Bim Yegodim that wants to be machmir, but there's unfortunately all the other places give not like that, and the Mishnah Berurah is clearly the maker on the Shiloh. So Melo, someone wants to be machmir, not to use it based on the Bim Yegodim, he can be machmir. Someone wants to be machmir based on the Rabbeinu Tam and Yasha, he can be machmir. If you want to know la halacha based on the Mishnah Berurah, comes out there's no makor whatsoever to be machmir. There's a Shuvin and Shevet Alevi that says very clear that the crackpot, the only question would be to be machmir for the shita of the mechaber, or if someone's, like we said, the chaznish held that way, to be chayish mechaber. But on Bnei Ashkenaz to go with the Ramah, Kabadu is 100% mutter because that's hatmon of miktas, because it's megolo l'mayla, which means that the kisui is uncovered. The question is, what was Rav Shlomo Zalman's psak? So to say that Rav Shlomo Zalman was machmir, now like I said, and to say there's machmir because he's Chosh Pri Megodim, or to say Rav Shlomo Zalman was machmir because of this chayodam, I don't believe that you can say that. Not going to be toilet buki sriki in das Rav Shlomo Zalman, and Baitis Bavust that Rav Shlomo Zalman studied the Kli a long time until it came to psak. What does Rav Shlomo Zalman have to study the Kli for a long time? I mean, Rav Shlomo Zalman either he held like Pri Megodim, he didn't hold like Pri Megodim. He held like Sefer Yosh Rabbeinu Tam, or he didn't. There's no big. He did a lot of research exactly how the crackpot works. He doesn't have to have a great study about it. Avaito, Rav Shlomo Zalman skidu held that even with the yevet, if someone uses it, the food is awesome because he held there's no tzad to be matter. 1 second. Even if he wants to mach like a Pri Megodim, you can't say there's no tzad. The Pashas Mishnah Berurah is Safur Shachar Shochan, it's mutter, Safur Shemachzor Shekel, it's mutter. So you want to be machmer, you can machmer. Tell someone even with the Yevet, it's usher, it can't be. So it has to be that Shlomo Zalman held that, we'll get to soon what he held, but it has to be that Shlomo Zalman held that the usage of crackpot is oslo kuliyama and there's no tzad maker. This has nothing to do with the shmuz that we spoke about till now. But otherwise, it would make sense that he would say that with Yevet, it would be a problem. And I want to eat, and Shmir Shabbos means clearly from Shlomo Zalman. Shlomo Zalman held that if something is mutman, or it's open on one spot, even if it's mutman on 5 stodim, Shlomo Zalman held that it's not considered mutman. So it's clear that was Shlomo Zalman shita. Let's say he's talking about an urn and you're surrounding it with something. So he says as long as you leave one side even a little bit open, as long as it's shal ba'avir, that's already enough. So Melo, there's no suffix that Avad Rav Shlomo Zalman was not being machmir mitzad Pri Megodim or mitzad chayodam, which all these things are La Locha, Yizicha wasn't chayshir for them. So what was the pshat in Shlomo? So we're not going to go through the reason. Shlomo did write a small tshuva, and you can look up the tshuva. It's printed in Mechashloim Mechalik Beisim Alamadal. I say, I'm not going to go through, but I'm just going to try to explain for the Nirlani Daiti what was the deen of Shlomo Zalman and what was Shlomo Zalman's chiddush and why he held the taket also. We said over the shita of the Ramah. The Ramah holds Atmana mitzvahs loishim Atmana. The Ramah argues on the shita of the Rabbinic. Yesh Lodin. What's the pshat in the shita of the Ramah? Those the Ramah hold that Atmana mitzvahs loishim Atmana means that the chefts of Atmana is that has to be mutman mekol hastodim. If it's not mutman mekol hastodim, that Chazal never asked. That's the chefts of Atmana. Atmana means mutman. If it's not mutman mekol hastodim, it's not considered mutman. Oh no. It's possible, maybe, there are also maskim b'shoyish advarim that it's possible to have atmona even not mutam kol hastodim. Novos. The yisod of atmona, Taisus read still at the beginning of the parak. The yisod of atmona has to be because since it's loy sholap by avira, there's a much more of a chashash that a person is going to mechata. Because since it's loy sholap by avira, it gets very, very hot. Melo, a person knows that being mechata, it's going to toiv gewaltig. Because it's like sholab avira. Air can get in, so it's going to retain the heat very strong. So what's the pshat in the shita? Is the shita hold that that's a surah atmana? Atmana means mutman kol hastodim? No, love dafka. That's in the remark could have been masking that if you have a chatimtza of atmana miktas that would not be sholab avira, Allah would be that it would be good. That means it would be considered atmana. But if it's not mutman bekuloi, it's sholit by avira. So you get clear. This is Rayas, the Kan Lakam. I'm not going to go through the Rayas. There is a Mefusha Sefer Truma. Pishaysa brings it down over here. That says very clear. When he brings it down the Shita of Hatmana Mimixas, it's not Hatmana. He says, Kivan She'en Mechasak Deri Misovim Mikol Sad, Toshola Ba'avira. The Nakuda of Hatmana Mimixas is, it's Shola Ba'avira. And male, that's why there's no Chash Chitu. That's what he best do. So it's clear, Akapana Sefer Truma goes to this side. That not pshat is that the tzur of atmana is that has to be mutam kol hastodim. The tzur of atmana could have been even less than that. Now, for us, there's a problem of sholab avir. There's a murdiga bi'alocha. The bi'alocha in the end of Rash Zion brings down on the Mechaber brings down that when you have a pot that's sitting on top of gecholim and someone covers it. So it says, ain't true like they're noigim gecholim. The bottom of the pot is not touching the gecholim. But if it would be touching, it would be a problem. Why? Because if it's touching the gecholim, according to the Shittim Mechaber, it's a problem at one of mitzvahs. So the Magavam says, but according to the sheet of the Ramah, at one of mitzvahs, loishmat mana, who cares if the pot is touching the gecholim? But it's a little bit interesting that their more is not mastered. Look what I wrote earlier. Okay, you can say maybe Saimachan we wrote earlier. But the Bialocha brings down like this. It says, I am Ogan of Ram, Mashmine, the Dasar Mob, the Semination Gimel, the Soifer, that feels like him like a Cholim, Shari. The male is what they also. I feel like it's since it's not Mutman old stuff. So up to the Sefer, HaRav Chaylekolov. The HaRav argues, I mean, look at the HaRav, he holds because the Mashmais Ramah is that the Ramah is masked with the Mechaber. The Soviet, the Kimmich of Mechasam, Maile Begodim, Gamma Ramah, Maide, and Local, Elbish, and Bishul, like there, and Neugin, Begecholim. Which basically what the Bialocha is bringing for the HaRav is that if you have a pot that's sitting on top of Gecholim, even if the pot is not Mutman and Gamsa, it's just that there's Begodim around it, but the space. But since it's sitting directly on the top of Gecholim, the Loch is there must be masking to the Mechaber, that it's going to be a problem. If the Ramah holds that the chefts of Atmana is that's the mutman mekol hastodim, it's not mutman mekol hastodim. So how could there be a problem? Teretz is that the Mishnah Berurah understood, the HaRav understood that the Ramah holds that Atmana mitzvah loishma Atmana. It's not a kosef. That the kosef. It's not the kosef was only the mutman mekol hastodim that has a shame Atmana. No. The chefs of Atmana is possible to be even if it's not mutam mekol hastodim. Now, for us, the problem is that it's sholab avira. You have a case when it's sitting on the cholim and it's pumping heat into it, and it's surrounded by begodim. Since the ma'aser there's not too much of a place for their heat to go out, even though it's not mutman cost them, because there is air around between the pot and the begadim, doesn't make a difference. Here the Ramah is gemaskin the mechaber. So we have a clear HaRav and Mishnah that's clear that the Ramah is gemaskin the mechaber when it's not mutman. We call us the as long as it's a chatimtza of sholit, it loy sholav avir. So Kenira, based on this was just mention another thing. The Talmud says from the Shabbos that let's say if you earn and you're surrounded with something, so as long as it's open, it's enough. But he says, but it has to be enough open that it's sholav avir, because that's the kviyas. The kviyas is not mutman kula or not. The kviyas is sholav avir or not. So b'derech klal, if it's open on the top, it's sholav avir. What Rav Shlomo Zalman was machadish by a crackpot, and that was Rav Shlomo Zalman's chiddush. And after studying it, he saw that the crackpot was built in a way that it should cook and retain the heat as much as possible. That's why it stays very, very hot. Melo, and you see the biggest rye is even during the week. That's the way it's cooked, and the food stays very, very hot. So Melo Rav Shlomo Zalman held that the crackpot was built in a way that it shouldn't be shal bavira. Even like the sheet of the Ramah, that Atmana mixes loishma Atmana, it's only because it's loishal bavira. But over here, since it's only because shal bavira, but since over here it's built in a way that's loishal bavira, it's built in that surah. Therefore, Shlomo Zalman held that even the Ramah is masking that it's going to be a problem. And that was taka why Shlomo Zalman was taka b'chiddush, and he studied it and trying to figure out exactly how the crackpot works and how the people use it during the week and how it retains its heat. But once he held it usher even like the Shita Ramah, and he held it usher b'di'evet, because he held that it's usher. There was no time to make it, because the yesod of the Ramah is sholav ba'avira. But if it's loy sholav ba'avira, even if it's not mutman and ganzen, it's a problem. Came Nira, the farish ba'imik of Shlomo Zalman. Now, that means you could down maybe not a tatik matter of crackpot, because the Rishonim say that if there's avir between the doifen of the gdera and what it's be matman in, that's not a problem of atmana. Lashon Rash says Abi Harba. Others say don't say the Lashon of Abi Harba. There's Lashon Shatzian is smart, even if it doesn't have to have Abi Harba. So over here, maybe you could say there's some space over there. But Dach Zechmir from Zalman, and that's a smasher from what Shlomo Zalman wrote in a place that the yesod of Abi is because it also has to do with sholav ba'avira. But over here, faket, the reason why Mishabed there has to be some space there, otherwise it's not going to be able to. It's somehow it's going to stare. But whatever it is, it's built in a way that even with that ave, it's still a sholav ba'avira. Be'er Shlomo Zalman held that there wasn't an issue. So what comes out, the Dorenu is that the crackpots, to say that the problem of crackpots is because it's uncovered on top, and that's called mutman and ganzen, like the Pri Megadim has shresat, that was saying lalocha it's a shresat. To say that as long as mutman ruboy, that would be a problem. It's also shresat. The Mishnah Berurah clearly passed. It's not like that. And we said that others bring from the chayodom. There's no such chayodom, and it's a toys and a standing pshat in the chayodom. And that's why the pashtus is the crackpots, it's not a problem, and their Moshe told clearly that way that it's not a problem. But Shlomo Zalman was machadish that no, since the yesod of the Ramah that Atmana mixed lishma Atmana has to do with sholav ba'avira, and normally it's not sholav ba'avira unless it's open, unless it's totally closed. But here it's built in a way that it shouldn't be sholav ba'avira. That's why Shlomo Zalman held that it's a problem. So Abado, to say that it's also to use such a crackpot, it's hard to say it's also when you have Ramosha and other Gedolim that held that you're allowed to use it. But there definitely is a mokum someone to be machmir, because first of all we mentioned that Chaznish holds that Mikad it's also because he also passed on the Mechama. And there is others, there's a Shulchan HaRav and others that hold that maybe Batmana in Moisav Hevel, there's a more of a mokum to be machmir. So even though Mishnah Berurah is not machmir with that, but upon there is a mokum someone to machmir. And the noise to that, you have from Zalman that hold that no one is makel on the shaila, and everyone holds that this should be aser. So sicher, someone wants to be machmir, it's a very stark mokum to be machmir. Now, what should someone do if you want to be machmir? So depends on what the problem is. If the problem is that it's mutman b'roiv, so you have to make it that it's not mutman b'roiv. If the problem is that it's megullah, the mile is not enough, so you would have to lift it up a little bit. The problem with Shabbos Alman is that it's loy shol b'avira. Also, if you lift it up and then it's going to be shol b'avira, there wouldn't be a problem. So the simple answer is you take something. Some people put a tuna fish can. Some people have seen you put a pliers, or you can make little balls out of steel foil and you put it under a pot. So you lift up the pot, let's say berach an inch. Maybe automatically you have the milo that it's megullah l'mayla on the side, and the Shamzama's problem, once it's lifted up an inch, the Metzias is there's a tremendous amount of avir that gets in, and may be shal bavira, may even like the Shamzama sheet to someone who wants to machmash like the Shamzaman, about the who will be have that. So may about the it's not such a hard thing to do. So definitely there's a mokum, like I said, the machmer, especially Shamzama, was very, very stark about this. Okay, we're going to stop here. And this is the kitzer of the shmooze about the crackpot. Yeah, because I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to. I want to stay focused.